everybody, welcome back to another episode of Figma and Zeplin Better Together. My name is June. I am one of your hosts. I'm also joined by my co-host, Mike. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
June, Tom, how you guys doing? Yes, my name is Mike, and I work in Zeppelin to make sure that everybody out there, the community, can get the most out of our tool.
Cool. And I'm going to switch it over to Tom. Tom joins us from Bleacher Report. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about Bleacher Report?
Yeah, just first off, June, Mike, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Wish we were doing this in person. But a little bit about Bleacher Report. I would say it is at its core a sports media company, but it really is so much more than that. I've always seen it as this innovative intersection of sports, music, fashion, and social justice issues catered towards Gen Z and millennials, and what their consumption behaviors and habits are. So it really is a reflection of popular culture through the lens of sports for the scrolling generation.
Okay, great. So Tom, maybe you could tell me a little bit about what your actual role is at Bleacher Report, just like the title, for instance.
Yeah, I'm a senior product designer. I joined as designer number 4 on what was then a fledgling product team 4 years ago. Since then, I've been lucky enough to work on almost all aspects of the product, from scores and betting to growth, acquisition, and revenue, to now live video.
A Renaissance man. I love it. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so, Tom, you mentioned to me and June before that, you have this deep love for your design team and for Bleacher Report as a whole. And one of the reasons of that is just because of the diversity that exists within the team. And you and the team are very proud of that.
Oh, they're great. I love them. I feel blessed to work with such talented designers that I get to call my peers and continue to get inspired by them every day. It's really what keeps me motivated. A lot of times people say the work is the work, but the individuals matter. They really do. And one of the things we're always that we've always stressed and continue to is, in order to thrive and succeed as a designer, you have to be able to show up as your authentic self. So, I'm so proud to be part of a diverse team of designers comprised of 70% females. Further, we collectively come from all races, backgrounds, all walks of life, which isn't always easy in a traditionally male-dominated environment that is the sports industry. But it's always been important to us that our team represents and reflects the diversity of our fans.
Tom, fantastic. Thank you so much for talking about the company background, obviously the incredible team that you have there at Bleacher Report, and your specific role. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your team's workflows. So could you give me a little overview of what the design to development process looks like right now?
Yeah, sure, Mike. So normally, and there are exceptions, but by and large, we start with a discovery doc in the form of a Google Doc that's been vetted. The PM shares with design and engineering. From there, we brainstorm. BC, before COVID, that meant getting together in a room and whiteboarding in person. Once that stopped becoming possible, we adopted new collaboration tools, first with Miro, and then more recently on FigJam. And I'd say both are great. I like Miro because they have tools that come out of the box, which make it really easy to throw together something like a lo-fi concept or flow, especially if you're not a designer. The learning curve is relatively low, which means non-designers are more prone to be engaged in the brainstorm sessions, which is always really important. With FigJam, it's a little bit more robust and great for diagramming, annotating, mood boarding, and the fact that it's part of the same FigJam ecosystem is an added bonus. So we brainstorm in Miro or FigJam and agree on approach. And that's the most important part. We don't start anything until stakeholders have agreed, aligned, and approach, so there's no surprises down the road. From there, we began our wireframe explorations in Figma. Previously it was Sketch, and we run it through crits. We iterate, we move to visuals, we iterate some more. And once it's in a place that's ready, we package it for delivery. So other tools that we also use that are important to us is we use Notion to document. Previously that was Basecamp, but now Notion to document all our design decisions and updates. And that's important because it has all the relevant links and resources available there. So for transparency, stakeholders who may not be as immediately involved with the day-to-day progress, they can stay apprised of what's going on. And I would say, the way it works is strategic feedback is in Notion, tactical feedback is given in Figma. For anything related to Notion, we use Figma for quick prototyping. When we need something that's a little bit more nuanced, After Effects for custom animations. And then on a more rare case basis, we have Origami, Flinto, or Framer for prototyping and animation as well. Oftentimes, it just comes down to which tool the designer is most comfortable with and really what exactly they're trying to communicate or accomplish.
Just switching gears in terms of your team, I remember Mike and we talked to you before about this squad model approach of how you kind of work together. Can you tell the people a little bit more about that squad model over at Bleacher Report?
Sure. So you are correct. We work in a squad model, which is this union where product, design, and engineering are paired together to a certain focus area and work in tandem collectively. And what that then means is each discipline has an equal stake at the table, so to speak, and everyone has an equal say in terms of what happens from the roadmap all the way to a specific project. Product will say, hey, we need to prioritize and build this feature in the next upcoming sprint. Here are the business reasons, X, Y, and Z. Here are the product specs. Design will then advocate from the perspective of the user, as well as lay out the design requirements needed there. And then engineering will often then bring us all back down to earth and let us know whether it's actually feasible based on the timeline and what level of effort looks like. So it's by no means a transactional marriage or partnership. It's an open and ongoing conversation where all parties are heard.
That is super cool. I love the fact that, it seems like you bring in developers early on to kind of vet, hey, the things that we're thinking about, are they even possible? And how much of it is possible? Got it. So it seems like your team is very robust here. Just curious, are there any other people in that squad model? So you mentioned a designer and developer, or like PMs involved, or like copywriters involved, or like third-party developers involved? Like, can you talk a little bit more about, what's inside that model?
Yeah. So traditionally, it's been product managers, product designers, and engineering. I will say with live video, it's a bit more unique in the sense that for video, I'm responsible for not just iOS, Android, and web, but also connected devices. So it is a little different with, Roku, Amazon Fire, etc. I do work with third-party developers that we've brought in that have specialized knowledge of that specific platform, or with certain teams from WarnerMedia, our parent company, who have extensive experience working on things regarding live video like March Madness.
Tom, thank you so much for providing some color on your workflow and how your team kind of works together, especially with that squad model and stuff. Now we're just going to transition gears here to talk about some of the challenges you're facing before using Figma and Zeplin.
Well, luckily for me, we've used Zeppelin for as long as I've been here. So I don't know, or could imagine a world where I work without Zeppelin. But were a couple of other things. So for digital design production, as I mentioned earlier, we used to use Sketch. Obviously, transcending tool, right? That led the way for things like Figma. So when I think back now, the thing with Sketch is that it was all local. It was a local static file. So you were really the only one with access to it. You couldn't just shoot out a link and anyone could view it anytime, anywhere. Every time you made any updates, no one would know unless you took that extra step to communicate out to the relevant parties. So that led to speed and agility of collaboration to be a bit slower. The feedback cycle just, it wouldn't come as fast as we would have liked it to be. I would say another challenge would be, speaking of, being able to streamline things, going from design handing off to engineering. From the developer side, it's asking a lot of them to keep track of everything. Without Zeppelin, it'd be extremely difficult. Engineers, they need that source of truth to develop from. And when it came down to it was, Zeppelin became our source and screens of truth. Because if you think about it, from the wireframe to visual phase in Figma, designers can go through anywhere from 5 to 20 iterations or more depending. And scope can change as much as design likes that. It happens, it's part of the process. There's a certain level of fluidity there, to it. So even final designs in Figma can change. And we actually label pages in Figma as final, but even those change, last minute tweaks, slight adjustments. So there's a lot of moving parts, and engineering wasn't always, they're not always aware when something changes. You have to hit them up on Slack, on the Slack channel. Many times communication is asynchronous. So with all the iterations and fluidity, it can be difficult to keep track and establish that truth for engineering in Figma. So I love Figma, believe me, I do, but it can be hard to find a particular screen, especially if it's not your file. Every designer has their own workflow and organizational conventions. Some projects can have upwards of 50 to 75 screens, and intricate flows and multiple states. And if someone is trying to pick up someone else's project, it can be damn near impossible to find what you're looking for. So I think those were two of the sort of the biggest pain points there.
Yeah, Tom, it's really interesting that, Figma is this incredible tool, and it has made teams a whole lot more agile, right? Be able to produce, be able to iterate more quickly. But there's an externality related to that, to other stakeholders in the process, right? With heavy iteration comes a confusion of what is final, right? And that's why you're doing things like labeling these pages in Figma. But even then, it's hard to establish what that truth is for engineering. Yeah. Okay, great. And Tom, I think you've also mentioned too that because of I guess the makeup of Figma, sometimes collaboration could be difficult with the whole product team. For example, non-designers in the design tool like Figma. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, another pain point is that we were finding collaboration with the whole product team was difficult at times, and putting myself in their shoes, it's daunting for a non-designer to be asked to use a design tool. It'd be like an engineer asking me to look at code and ask me what I thought. So PMs would be dropped into a file. It's hard to navigate on this sort of infinite canvas. And as a designer, there would be added pressure to make sure everything was organized and annotated and laid out. And that's just time taken away from actually designing. On top of that, non-designers would be afraid to click something by accident, touch something and mess up the file. And sometimes we find ourselves having to provide additional training and guidance for product and engineering to use and navigate Figma.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think that drives home the point that, tools are made for specific groups of people, right? One tool isn't made for everybody. You mentioned, you can't code. Lots of people can't design. So yeah, it's based on your skill set, how you deal with different tools.
Tom, appreciate you giving us some background about some of the challenges that you're facing. And now I'm super excited to turn it over to you and get into this awesome demo. So Tom, take it away.
Thanks, June. When we talk about the integration with Figma and the importance of it with Zeplin. So as an example here, this is a very real file that I've been working on recently. And you take a look at it and it's daunting, right? Anyone that isn't familiar with this, immediately they think, what am I looking at? Similarly with another example is this project as well. Even though it's annotated, there's a lot of flows, there's a lot of things going on with it. It can be really hard to keep track of exactly where's what and what's happening. So for example, let's say I now go ahead and there was a scope change, something needs to be changed at the last minute. We need to make some iterations. I need to change the copy or something like this. Whatever I do, I make a quick change like that. And I need to now make sure it's updated in Zeplin for the developers. It's literally as simple and easy as, highlighting whichever screens that need updating and need changing and going up to here to my plugins and, boop, boop, you hit the Zeplin plugin. It already knows how many screens have been selected, which project it's previously a part of organizationally, and which screens I'm talking about. And so literally all I have to do, this is as seamless and easy and something that I don't even need to worry about or think about as it gets, is I hit sync selected. It almost immediately seamlessly then goes ahead and updates it on this and on Zeppelin right there. You see it right now, it happens. And those that are involved, those that are following, developers, they know when I did an update, they get pinged, they get a message about it, and there is no disconnect. There's no gap there in terms of which screen is it, which one are we looking at. It's almost like instantaneous when we're talking about that integration between Figma and Zeppelin.
Got it. First of all, I'm super excited to see the show Double or Nothing. So let me know when that airs, and I'll make sure to catch that. But secondly, just kind of going back to our conversation, we talked about, hey, Zeppelin is that source of truth, right? And once in Zeppelin, it's official, and the developers are like really need this. Can you kind of show us here why that is, and why developers think it's so critical as their source of truth?
Sure. I mean, when we do that handoff, do that delivery with developers, almost always there are the Zeppelin links already attached, embedded. We make sure it's fully visible in all the various tools. So those Zeppelin links to the project are available in Notion. They're available in the Slack channel. They're, of course, available in the Jira ticket, especially with integration with Jira, being able to have that together. There's never a second question or a second guessing of which screen are we talking about, which exactly are you referring to. And the way that we have our Zeppelin desktop arranged is the exact same organizational structure as our Figma files and library. And so even then, there's that sort of synchronous, consistent experience between Figma and Zeppelin. There's really very little confusion that can be had or come up.
Got it. So it looks like the developers, once they go to Zeppelin, they know that it's the lock design, it's the final design. They don't have to ask you, the designer, hey, is this version 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0? Like, they know once it's Zeppelin, it's ready to go and start coding, right?
Yeah, and with things like version history and things with being able to consolidate one project or a flow into one, that makes it even that much easier for them to understand which state or which scenario are we talking about in these designs.
Okay, cool, Tom. And yeah, Tom, you mentioned that one of the issues that you guys are facing was just the whole product team coming together and being able to collaborate, right? So being confused about a design tool as a developer, a marketer, copywriter, PM. And it seems like one of the problems was the organization of those design files, like you showed us, right? So could you just tell us about like how the organization of Zeppelin helps you, the design team, and the rest of the product team kind of navigate easily these screens?
Sure, Mike. So like I mentioned, we purposely and consciously sort of mirrored the way that we have our library set up in Figma to be consistent with our Zeppelin desktop. So, with our projects, we've got improvements. All these different things are the exact same label and exact same organization as we would find in Zeppelin. So even for a designer, for example, if I need to go find a project that my team member is working on from a different squad, I know, let's say they're in Scores Embedding, they're working on this, I know that was the file in Figma, but also this is the exact place to find it in Zeppelin as well. So that really just cuts down a lot of time and having to really search for certain things. So I think it makes sense to, have those two things be in tandem with one another. And it has made all our lives a lot easier. One thing I did want to, just mention again, as being a place that we can collaborate, Zeppelin really has become this place where the whole squad can come together and easily navigate like what we're looking at now, get up to speed. It is that safe, reliable space where other disciplines, and partners can come in. People in our team love it because it's super easy to use. there's no learning curve. Sharing a mock or screen is ridiculously easy. When I'm talking about a screen to a PM or engineer or director, which screen, it's just, let me ping you the Zeplin link. So it's just really accessible across the board.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Tom, for kind of showing us that. And I just wanted to kind of overview, it sounds like Zeplin and Figma, it's like this beautiful marriage, right? That is increasing efficiencies for the design team and also the development team. Figma is like this incredible tool that allows you to be so creative. Zeplin is providing structure to that design tool for other disciplines within the company, right? So what kind of benefits are you seeing right now for Bleacher Report with this marriage?
I mean, it reduces back and forth for sure. There's less follow-up questions between the different teams, between design, engineering, and product. There's less of which screen, where is that, and as a designer, once I finish one feature or project, I'm moving on to the next one. So when I get a question about one particular interaction on one particular screen that engineering has picked up 2 months later, I'm not going to remember what exactly they're talking about. But if the link is in Jira and everything's connected, it just saves a whole lot of brain power on my end, which I really appreciate and thankful for, at least from design perspective. So, overall, it means less Slack, less meetings, less emails, less searching for things, having to figure out which screens and designs, were actually final. So, bottom line, it just speeds up design to development.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, Tom. The reducing the back and forth, and basically eliminates that need for endless Slack messages or extra documentation or extra notes, and it really cements the value proposition, which is shipping out faster products and having designers do more designer stuff and developers do more coding stuff, right?
Awesome, Tom. Thanks for the demo. So I wanted to ask you now a little bit about, what are some little tidbits here and there? What are some exciting things coming next for Bleacher Report?
There's definitely a lot of exciting things coming up. Unfortunately, I can't really talk about them publicly, especially when it comes to strategy, as it's a work in progress. What I can say is that behind the scenes, we do a lot of listening with our fans. The great thing about Bleacher Report users is that they are wildly loyal, and we make the extra effort to make them feel like they're involved and part of what we do. So we definitely hear them. We hear what they've been clamoring for to improve certain experiences, and we've been hard at work on those things. We're also in the midst of rolling out a number of new features that I think will really take what the app is at the moment to the next level. And that's to become this one-stop shop fan experience where you can catch up on highlights and scores, watch games while chatting with your friends, and a whole number of other things. So be on the lookout. We're going to be rolling out some really cool stuff within the next year.
Tom, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to take a little sneak peek at all this cool stuff you got down in the pipeline. And yeah, the Bleacher Report app is awesome. I just checked out one of your new shows on there, Chips with Draymond on it. So that was really, really cool. Yeah, and just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I learned a lot. I think Mike learned a lot. I think our people are going to learn a lot just about your whole process and how you kind of use Figma and Zeplin better together. And I'm going to give you this last minute for you for anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk about in terms of Bleacher Report.
Yeah, so I have a book and movie coming out. No, I'm kidding. So I'd say we're always hiring and looking for talented, passionate designers, and not just product design roles, but for motion design, content design. We have a whole innovation team that works on AR and things like that. If you want to learn more about design at Bleacher Report and what we do, check out design.bleacherreport.com. That's design.bleacherreport.com. It's a great culture environment here. We work hard and we play hard because at the end of the day, it's sports, right? You're supposed to have fun.
Awesome. I'm looking forward towards the book. Please send me a signed copy. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.